This is Rosie.
I'm Rosie Sisk. I am a sexual assault nurse examiner. So I started to assist with the program in Lawton for sexual assault nursing, and I was one of two nurses at that point. Shortly after that, we grew by one nurse, and we lost our coordinating nurse, and so we had to really re-examine kind of what was going on with the program. And at that point, a few years ago, is when the state decided to step in and give us a statewide coordinator, which was really, really amazing, as far as having somebody who's more experienced and we can actually pick up the phone and say, hey, I need help with something. So there was a lot of things that I learned going through that. And now I manage that program in Lawton, and then I assist with the sexual assault program here. I am one of one nurses in Altus, so I stay on call. And that's fine with me because I would rather be there for somebody who needs me when they need me, so not a problem. So this is going to be the Stop, Breathe, Support report. The goal of this is to provide education, because I feel like if a kid were to catch on fire today, we would all know what to tell them, right? Stop, drop, roll. Well, what happens if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I was sexually assaulted? Do you really know what's out there in your community as far as providing resources? Would you know how to encourage somebody to do that? So in order to encourage, we have to understand what's there. So just a disclosure, sexual assault is a very uncomfortable topic. And if you are severely uncomfortable, go ahead and take a moment. You can step out. The library has coloring pages and some coloring pencils on the table. You just go in there and doodle away. But if you're a little uncomfortable, that's okay. We're going to call those growing pains. So in order to understand, we're going to start with consent T. I want you to know that I show this to everybody, even law enforcement, because I feel like we need to really review it. It's such a really basic concept, right? But this is something that I think we really need to do better with when we explain it, especially to our children. Like, hey, you might have consent to take her on a date, but make sure you get consent to give her a hug, hold her hand, make sure that you are both okay with the idea of leading in for a kiss. And then I stop there because I don't want them to do anything else.
That's right.
So we're going to talk about statistics because in order to understand this, we have to really grasp this number. It is estimated that nationally there's 17% of women and 3% of men have actually faced sexual violence in their lifetime. In the state of Oklahoma, that number of women that have actually been raped or attempted rape is actually 35 to 45% higher than the US national. So this little beautiful thing down here is going to tell you, as you can see, the larger majority of people who are sexually assaulted know their perpetrator or their assailant. The next biggest one is that they actually identify that person as a family member. This one here is somebody who identifies them as a complete stranger. And then this other portion right here is the other. So this other would be somebody who is more like an acquaintance, like, oh, I kind of just met them. They're kind of like somebody I know, but I really don't know them that much. So they kind of fall into that other. So for children, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 13 boys will actually be sexually assaulted. 90% of them know their assailant, not surprising, right? But 23% of their assailants are actually under the age of 18 themselves. So the effects of childhood sexual assault is that they are 4 times more likely to develop PTSD as an adult. So not so much while they're still a child, but when they become an adult and we're starting to introduce relationships, that's when we start to really kind of see those. They are 4 times more likely to try substance abuse. This is something I hit home with law enforcement every day because they meet people on the streets who do suffer from substance abuse or using that. Maybe they're acting a certain way when they see a male officer or a female officer. So they need to be aware that this population of children who are assaulted are 4 times more likely, and this could be the person that they're facing. They are 2 times more likely to experience intimate partner violence, meaning that they will seek a relationship out that is not healthy for them. They're up to 13% more likely to be re-victimized as an adult. So it's like somebody putting a kick me here sign on the back of your shirt, and you just keep walking around and somebody else will come up and kind of do it. And it feels like you don't really understand. But we're going to talk about the neurotrauma later of a sexual assault client or a person, and then you can really understand what happens. We know from the ACE studies, I know most people in here have heard of the ACE studies. Has everybody heard of the ACE studies? Okay. So we know that those childhood traumas will actually lead to heart disease, obesity. Obesity leads to diabetes. It leads to all sorts of other problems, respiratory issues. And then eventually some of these kids do develop cancer. So the issue, again, what happens when somebody discloses? What is it that we really need to do? So sometimes you just need to stop and reevaluate what you're hearing. So it's really easy to start making the idea that, okay, well, is that really what happened? What I need you to do is just stop, listen, it's okay to be there. I need you to reflect. And then from there, the goal is are we going to encourage somebody to do this? Are we going to just provide support? Or is this something that we actually need to make or pick up the phone and make that report? So we need to learn to listen. If you've seen this, I'm sorry. I still love it. I think it's wonderful. It says it 10 times better than I will ever say it. It's okay to say thank. Again, just start with believing. And then more importantly, remember that you were trusted. So this isn't something that when somebody discloses it to you, that they want the entire neighborhood to hear it, or the entire community. I think that we have good intentions when we try to reach out for people, but making sure that we have permission to reach out on their behalf is a really big deal. So CSI versus SVU and podcasts and versus reality. So who all likes watching these things, hearing these things, true crime? Yeah, so what have we learned listening to these things? Anybody? When you hear them, what do you hear? What makes a good case when they go to solve it? Catching the person. Catching the person requires evidence, right? Proof that it happened. Well, what happens when the survivor starts to change their story? They hit that all the time. Oh, well, she started to change her story, so I'm not sure I believe her. And so it lays a seed of doubt. So what do we really know? What if we started to treat everything like we do our investigations? That's really truly what ends up happening with our survivors. So they get told, well, what is it that you did? Well, what can you do better next time? That kind of mentality, right? And then how do you prove that somebody took or violated your privacy? They took something so intimate as far as control away, because control, we can't touch it, we can't see it, can't see consent. So it can be really hard. So in reality, 72% of jurors actually expect there to be evidence when we talk about sexual assault. In order to feel like they can prove that that happened, they need DNA evidence, which would be okay if it was a one-time, spur of the moment kind of thing. But if we're talking about serial rapists, people who learn to clean up their mistakes and eventually get better and better at their craft, if you will, the odds of catching DNA evidence is very, very low. And even if we had that DNA evidence, only 33% of it only increases the rate of prosecution or conviction by 33%. So even if I gave them DNA, the chances only go up by 33. Over 70% of my cases that I actually do will have physical or not have physical injuries. No rips, no tears, no bruises, nothing at all. So 70% of my people come in and say, I've been assaulted. Maybe he was strangling me, something of that nature. I may never see a bruise. The story changes is something that they hear a lot of the time. And we know that, and that's what I forgot was the memory. With memory, after a traumatic event, in 24 hours, most people are only able to recall 30% of the incident. 48 hours, it goes up by to 50%, and then in the next 72 to 100 hours, it'll grow from 75 to 95%. This is the last video, trauma brain. This is something I want you to keep in mind because again, they've laid that seed of doubt for you, right? When they say, oh, she changed her mind. Well, this is what happened, those kind of things. So I need you to understand kind of what goes on. that's really what I wanted to show you as far as the trauma goes for these people. They do, when you talk to them, sometimes they may look like they're completely fine. They may respond like, well, it's not a big deal, because in their mind, they're still trying to put it together, piece it together, and maybe it just hasn't been enough time. A lot of my survivors, when they come in and they tell me I can't remember all the details, I tell them that's a good thing. Right now, your body is doing everything it can to keep you safe and protected. And it took you out of that memory for a little bit. It may take some time for that memory to come back. And if it does, that's great. I want you to work with your detectives, or I want you to work with your advocate and counselors to kind of go over that. If it comes back and it's too much, you need to be working with them. So the reality is that for every 100 rapes or attempted rapes that are reported to the police, only 19 of those will actually lead to an arrest. 5 of those will actually plead out, and only 1 of them will end in a guilty verdict at court. It's really sad. So then how do I measure success? 98% of the assailants that we go to court for will walk free, because we can't give them DNA. I can't sit there and say 100% for sure that they were raped, because I wasn't there. The way that I measure success as a nurse is that my people never leave the same way they came in. When they come in, they won't make eye contact with me. They're looking down. They're trying to remember. They're going over everything that they could have done, the would have done, I should have done. How did I get here? When they leave, they've at least smiled once. They want a hug. I'm not a hugger, but I give it to them. They will thank me. And then if we have to go to court, they feel like they're in control enough that they can go to court. They feel like they've been given the tools to be able to face this and say, hey, this happened to me. Even though we know 98% of them are going to walk free. So I can't measure success by convictions, because I don't go to court. I can't defend them like that. So in order to encourage somebody or to provide support for somebody who may disclose to you, you have to know what's out there, who is out there. And what I want you to know is that there is a dedicated team of individuals composed of advocates, the medical personnel, and then law enforcement. And we are working to improve the relationship so that way our survivors know it is a team approach. So our advocates, if you were ever interested in being somebody who is of support, you can just sit there and hold their hand, somebody who's willing to just listen. I want you to know that that course is available at no cost. It's a 30-day course. So if you wanted more information about that, I did give you some information there to reach out to you about, okay? It is an in-person training. What you should know is that it is a commitment for a 24-hour-a-day kind of response. Sexual assault doesn't just occur Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. It's going to occur when my kid's playing at his band for the football games. It's going to occur when I'm supposed to be on a date night for my anniversary or my kid's birthday. It always happens on my kid's birthday. So we respond. As an advocate, they attend the medical exam with me. And so their job is to sit at the head of the bed, hold the hand of the survivor, and then remind them to breathe. Because when you've gone through something like that, you need somebody to remind you to breathe. They are able to attend the police interviews with our survivors and remind police that these are survivors themselves, and sometimes they may need a break. They will attend court with our survivors as well. Safe Haven is a local resource. They do have the domestic assault response as well. They have a shelter and it welcomes animals, which is great. They have this high lethality room, which is amazing because my survivors are considered to be high lethality, and if they need to go to a shelter, instead of sharing a room with a bunkmate, they actually get their own room that they can close the door and lock it and feel safe and secure. They have a transition program for people that live in the shelter, so if they need to move out of the shelter after so much time, they can help with getting them on their feet into an apartment. They work with other community resources to help with a deposit for gas and water, those kind of things. And then they have travel bags, because when people show up, they show up with just the clothes on their back. We also are able to offer protective orders at that shelter and address protection for anybody who wishes to make a report. Again, they work with the sexual assault response team, and they attend our sexual assault response team meeting. Safe Haven, like I said, they have that transition program. So I always say, if you guys are going to have a yard sale and you guys have big furniture, reach out to Lexi or Lisa and see if maybe you can donate that furniture there if you can. If it doesn't done, just trying to get rid of it. Instead of sending it to like the Goodwill or the Salvation Army where they're going to sell it to people like me who are looking for good projects for the weekend. Give it to them so that way they can help set up these people for success when they move them out. So again, SoCAD's website is right here. If you're wanting to become an advocate, you can go on there and it will actually give you some information on how to enroll. And then if you want to reach out to Lexi or Lisa, that is her information there. Children, it's really easy for everybody to show up for a child, right? Everybody wants to be a hero. And I think that's wonderful. I have to remind law enforcement that children eventually grow up to be teenagers. Teenagers grow into adults. And so we have to treat everybody like they're somebody's child. If you are struggling with the idea of, should I make that report? Does this look like abuse, physical, sexual, whatever the case may be? You can actually reach out to bookers. You can talk with Melanie or one of her girls, and they will help kind of talk to you and then let you know if you need to go ahead and make that report. Are we calling law enforcement? Are we calling DHS? Who are we calling? With children, I have 72 hours to perform a medical exam from the time of the assault. So just kind of keep that in mind. That allows me to get evidence collection. If it's outside that time frame, bookers will still take them and do a medical exam because a lot of the time these children have been groomed and their parents or their assailant is trying to make sure that they do not have access to medical care where they will accidentally disclose to somebody that something is happening. So we still need to offer that. Bookers also helps set up the forensic interview. The forensic interview is composed of somebody who's been specifically trained to ask questions in a way that are not leading, that allow the child to disclose what is happening. And again, they offer advocacy for the whole family. So if this is something, because a lot of our families are afraid to disclose because they think DHS is going to come over and rip their child from their arms, and that's not always the case. And having somebody in your corner who understands that system is so necessary for that family. So go ahead and make the call and let them know. When they go to that center, like I said, more than likely DHS will be there and then law enforcement will be there because we're a mandatory report state. I think there was a new law passed recently. I learned at the Partners for Change that says that if you are a teacher and somebody discloses to you, a child does, it is your responsibility. You can no longer go to your administration and have the principal or the counselor or whoever's make that phone call. It has to be you. If that child discloses to you, the best thing you can do is say, thank you so much for telling me, but don't ask any more questions. The more questions that we ask, you will actually ruin the chances of being able to have that child do a forensic interview. So we even tell law enforcement, like, the only thing you are able to ask is, do you need medical care? And leave it at that. Because anything they ask can actually put that child in the stand to face their assailant. So we want to limit that. We only let them talk to people that are like medical, where I can actually go and stand in proxy for that child or the counselor or whoever it is for the MDT. If it is somebody who reports sexual assault, please call law enforcement, please call DHS. The medical piece, if you are going to advocate for an adult to go have a medical exam, I have 120 hours, 5 days. So if they call me and they say, hey, Rosie, it's day 5, I'm going to ask what time that assault happened so I can make sure I'm within my time frame to do a medical exam. A medical exam does not always mean that I will do evidence collection. Medical exam says that I'm going to ask about their past medical history. I need to know about bleeding disorders and things of that nature, so that way I know what injuries to look for. All the medical information that they tell me is HIPAA protected. It never goes to law enforcement. Then we have photography. I need you guys to know that all of this stuff is 100% their choice when they're an adult. They get to cherry pick what they want and what they don't want. And I make sure that I explain that. When you walk into the center, I welcome you. I'm going to let you know that your voice has weight here. So if you tell me you don't want to do photography, or maybe you're okay with this picture but not that one, then I just mark it that they don't want that one. We do evidence collection. The OSBI, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, actually depicts what evidence I can collect in the time frame that is allowed. So again, I have 120 hours to do the medical exam. I have 120 hours to collect most evidence. If it is a sexual assault by oral, that window actually gets smaller to like 24 hours. So, but we still offer the medical exam because the medical exam isn't only evidence-based or evidence collection. It is solely to help them recover and look for injuries and talk about how to take care of themselves. Everything after that, I tell law enforcement is secondary. If I collect evidence for you, then that's great. And if I can't, well, then I can't. We talk about the prophylactic treatment of some STIs, so I can give them coverage for chlamydia and gonorrhea to make sure that they do not develop those. If that is something their assailant had and didn't disclose, they will actually get medication at our center at no cost to them, should they choose that they want it. We can also offer the emergency contraceptives, or we can talk about options should something happen like pregnancy. I understand emergency contraceptives is kind of a hot topic, but it is not an abortion pill in that it's supposed to stop the egg from releasing a smaller egg to be able to become fertilized. So that's the goal, is we're stopping ovulation. We talk about follow-up care. So if they have an injury, I want to make sure that they know where to go, who to see, and what they actually have to disclose when they talk to somebody medical if they want to. What's normal? So I get this one a lot. Well, I didn't do that. Is that normal? Or I had an orgasm and I didn't want it. Is that normal? Normal is only a setting on the dryer. That is it. Everybody responds differently. Your body responding to the sexual assault and the fact that they orgasmed is a typical response, because remember that the limbic system that controls just a simple touch for a dog results in a wagging of the tail. That's not a choice. Sometimes it will happen. My kids have 50 years. So if my survivor says, I don't want to work with law enforcement, they can still come to me and get their medical exam. They can still come to me and get their evidence collected. And I will give that evidence over to the appropriate law enforcement. And I say, you have up to 50 years to decide when you want this kit processed, should you want to. After 50 years, it will destroy it. But if, let's say, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, you find the strength and you say, I want to go ahead and try this, then they will run that DNA kit for you and see what they have. So that's really important for my survivors, because remember, it's all a choice. They get to cherry pick what they want, and they don't have to work with law enforcement. Consent and assent. There's a really big difference between consent and assent. And I say this with children the most because DHS can give me consent to do a forensic exam if that child is in DHS custody. A parent can give me consent to do a forensic exam as long as they are the birth parent, mom, dad. Law enforcement pulls that child out and says they are now in the custody of police department, Altus Police Department. They can give me consent to do a forensic exam. If I take that child back and I say, okay, Susie, I need to look at your private part because I heard that it hurts. So can I look at it? And she goes, yeah. And I said, okay, will you open your legs? And she goes, yeah. I will never pry open their legs. I will never hold them down, because that is re-traumatizing them. It is re-victimization. So there's a huge difference. I just put that she's not cooperating with the physical portion of that exam, and we leave it at that. Non-fatal strangulation. Everybody has somebody to shake hands with. Okay. So I need you guys to give each other a nice firm handshake and count to 5. And I mean firm. Okay. If you can. Yeah, try not. Try hard. Pull a trigger with their gun. On their gun is 6 pounds of pressure. That's one finger. 6 pounds of pressure. For us to open a soda can, 2 fingers, simple, 20 pounds of pressure. To do a firm handshake is between 60 and 80 pounds of pressure. I need you to look at your hand. Anybody have any bruises? Yeah. Bruised? Like working. Is it from the shape? No. Okay. That is really important, because to stop blood flow to the brain only takes 11 pounds of pressure. So less than a firm handshake. It takes 33 pounds of pressure to actually stop somebody from breathing. And you only have to do it for 5 to 10 seconds in order for somebody to lose consciousness. Remember, 20 pounds of pressure, soda can. And all you need is 11 pounds of pressure to stop the blood flow to the brain. Wow. for 5 seconds. After 14 seconds, if that blood flow does not restore, they can end up having seizures. 15 seconds, they start losing bladder functioning. Between the 13 and 30 seconds, they start to get something called petechiae, which is why we ask, like, have you been strangled? So that way I know I need to be looking for those little red freckles that occur. It's typically around the eyes. It could be that they've busted a blood vessel in their eye itself. But these are the things that I'm looking for that help me put all of that puzzle piece together for my survivor. After 30 seconds, bowel control, so they will defecate on themselves. After 1 full minute, they stop breathing, and after 157 seconds, life will stop. But again, remember, you guys didn't have bruises for that short amount of time at all. So again, there's over 70% of my cases will not have any evidence, physical injury evidence that something occurred. So law enforcement, a lot of my survivors don't want to work with law enforcement because they're confused. And that's usually what I get a lot of. They go and talk to somebody, their advocate will say, hey, let's go do this. But they don't want to work with them because they're so confused. Again, I had an orgasm. That can be a normal response of the body. Maybe they're under the age of 21 and they've been drinking. What you guys need to know is that in 1984, they actually found 40% of men thought that women who were intoxicated were considered fair game and it was okay to have sex with them. 41% of college students believe that it is a shared responsibility. So this is men and women at the college campus believe that if a woman was drinking, well, she needs to be responsible. Like, it's not just his fault that he did it. When we talk about sexual coercion, this is more for like my intimate partner violence. You know, husband comes home and he's like, man, I had a hard day. I never got that promotion today. Just made it terrible. But if you have sex with me, it would make everything so much better. And maybe she really doesn't want to, but he says, but it would make me feel better. So sexual coercion sometimes is just that simple. In 1998, they actually found that most men thought it was okay to verbally pressure their partners into having sex. With college students, there was a study that was done, and guys who take these girls out on dates say that these women were asking for it because maybe she was rubbing his arm or she rubbed his leg. And so they were just repaying them because they were turned on. It's kind of sad. And then out of 63% of college males, they thought it was okay to push for sex, to sexually coercion them into having sex with them if they were making out, just simple making out. A lot of my survivors who do work with law enforcement, they want to know, why does it take so long? So it is my job to plant all of the seeds that I can to make the outcome better. I say, I want you to know, we work to go to court. If they decide to go to court, it's going to take a long time. I think I recently went to court and that case was about 1.5 years old. And it takes a long time, and you want them to take a long time. When we talk about doing a full investigation, you want them to turn over every rock, every stone, every piece of dirt that they can find, so that way when they go to court for you, they have the best case possible. The lab results take a long time. There's only 4 OSBI labs in the state of Oklahoma who run all of the kits for it. And I think up until maybe about 1.5 years ago, there was like 2 technicians who ran the DNA off of their skits in each lab. So it takes a really, really long time. Well, what's the point of even doing this if only 98% of those people are going to walk free? Why should I have to go through the investigation process? That's up to them to decide. I just want to make sure that I do everything I possibly can to help them should they make that choice. But it's really just their choice. It feels like an interrogation. They call back and they'll let me know it felt like an interrogation. That's part of the investigation process. They have to go over all the whys, all the things, so that way when you go to court and somebody else puts you on the stand and they're looking at you very aggressively and they're asking all of these things, not new to you. Somebody's already asked you this. And like I tell the law enforcement, they've already done it. They did it in my chair before they ever came to see you, and I have to remind them that they did everything they possibly could to survive that situation. When I go to court, it's kind of funny. They get upset with me because I call every single one of my people that I interview a survivor, and they aren't. Will you believe every single one of them? I don't believe anybody wants to spend 3 hours with me to do a seat exam and show me every inch of their body, because I have to look at everything from the very top of their head, and I mean that, to the very tips of their toes and everything in between. So to be very vulnerable for 3 hours after you feel like you've been assaulted is a big deal. Very big deal. That little QR code there, guys, that is the Seek Then Speak program. This is a wonderful tool for our community to have, in that it is specific to Jackson County, which is great for data collection. It's kind of a vague data collection, but it's really, really good. Seek Then Speak, if they scan the QR code, what it's going to do is it's going to take you to a website, and it's going to tell you about the Seek portion. So the Seek portion is for any person who wants to know more about what happens after a sexual assault. It goes over advocacy, it goes over medical, it goes over the judicial system. And then there's the portion. That is more for my survivors, should they choose not to work with anybody at all. It was a program designed by law enforcement and by an attorney general who decided that we needed to be able to ask all of these questions, so that way if we need to come back and talk about conviction, we can. And so it is designed to go over questions that law enforcement would typically ask. It embeds times for break, like if you need a break, you can wait right here, we'll hold the spot for you, that kind of thing. And at the very end of the little thing that they fill out, it allows it to be turned into a PDF that they can actually download and email to somebody. So whether it's a good friend, whether it's an advocate, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's medical, they can send it to us and we will have that full report. It will also erase the entire history after the report is completed. So anybody who tries to grab that phone will actually be able to look at it and not see anything at all. So if we're worried about confidentiality, it takes care of that piece too. This will show me how many people actually log onto the site for Jackson County, the area itself. It will also tell me how many people have actually completed it, which is really good because I know statistically over 75% of cases do not get reported. These are our community resources and partners that we have at the sexual assault response team. So should somebody need to have these resources, we actually have, I'll show it to you here in a minute, we have a pamphlet that we put together at the SART meeting with a campaign of "You Deserve to Be Heard," and these are our partners. So Altus Police Department comes and we get to talk about barriers, how things went, they get to ask questions, that kind of stuff. So if you know somebody who wants to talk to the Altus Police Department directly, they can. If the assault occurred in Jackson County, but maybe not in Altus, you have the option to reach out to the Sheriff's Department. We have Safe Haven, their phone number is there. The Booker's Place phone number is there for you. Western Oklahoma State College is amazing in that to do an investigation here, all they have to do is hear that a sexual assault occurred on campus, and they will actually launch an investigation. It does not have to be the survivor or the assailant to make that report. So they start looking into it. Now, once they've gathered their information and they interview that survivor, the survivor has a choice that they either want to work with them or they don't. But the investigation is going to continue. So pretty neat. From that point forward, if it is an adult, the survivor has a right to say, hey, I don't want to work with law enforcement, and they will not turn that over to law enforcement. So again, it's really kind of giving our survivors a choice. Altus Air Force Base has two amazing resources. They have the SAPR program, which is military based. That is available to all their service members, dependents, and the Department of the DoD, Department of Defense civilians who are on base. They can actually call that number themselves and make a report. And then they will connect them either with community resources or with their resources. And then they have the one that's specific for families as well. That is there. If you meet somebody and they say, I don't want to do this, but it happened really recently, they don't want to come work with forensic, they don't want to work with advocacy, they don't want to do any of that, I want you to know that the Jackson County Health Department is here to help. We offer STD testing. We do offer the emergency contraceptive as well, but the window to give that is smaller. It's only about 2 to 3 days. So try to kind of get them out there, the quicker the better, if that is something they're wanting. We also have our amazing CHWs who offer the pregnancy resource navigators tool. So they help people connect with diapers and wipes and playpens and car seats. I mean, there's a whole arrangement out there as well. So we are here to help as the health department. I have 10 minutes, y'all, and we're almost done. I'm really excited. I made it. All right, and so the sexual assault response team, if you feel like you want to be at the table, maybe you just want to come to the meeting and listen and hear, that is an available option as well. Just kind of let me know. Reach out to me. I'm going to give you my information and you guys can have a seat or just come and listen. So that is my information if you guys need to get a hold of me. Most of y'all know how to. I hope you all learned something new. And I wanted to show you, this is going to be the tool that we're going to be handing out. So it's a little paper if you have an organization that wants to keep it on hand. Again, it is you have the right to be heard. It offers that seek and speak. It talks about the different types of assault, what to happen or what you can do, and then it gives a list of those community resources. So we're hopefully going to be pushing that out pretty soon. Is it one too? I'm working on it. I'm kind of bound by what I'm allowed to do. So, yeah. All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate you.